Get real, Beavis, she's just clearing her throat. Hello, my name is Will, and this is Exploding Helicopter, the second best podcast in the United States with an audience under 20,000. As the old saying almost goes, you wait ages for a volcano disaster movie, and then two come along at once. That at least was the experience of cinemagoers in 1997, when a pair of lava-filled movies erupted into theatres. Film fans had the difficult choice of deciding whether to see baggy-eyed thesp Tommy Lee Jones try to save Los Angeles, or whether to see everyone's third favourite 007 get to save an idyllic small town from molten magma mayhem. Fortunately for aficionados of exploding helicopters, the choice was a simple one, as only one of these films had the good sense to feature a chopper fireball. So on this show, we're reviewing Dante's Peak. Now, when we review any volcano-themed disaster film, there's only one man we put the emergency call into. He's a volcanologist, but without the ears. It's our good buddy, Fred Andersson. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's always an honor and a pleasure to sit here in my dark dwelling, talking to you over there in sunny. Which town you live in? I don't know actually, but anyway,
it's London, and I don't know how much you know about the UK, but it's very rarely sunny here in Sydney.
Yeah, I've heard so. I've been there once in London, and it was dark. It was dark.
Excellent.
Dark.
I wouldn't want you to. You might as well have the full UK experience there. But thank you for joining me, and I felt I did have to have you back, as reviewing this film, it felt like unfinished business. You know, you've been on here, you've graced us with your presence many times, but on your last couple of appearances, we've reviewed a couple of fun volcano disaster movies, specifically When Time Ran Out and Skyfire. So I just felt I had to get you back on for this one.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that, of course. I mean, we all know that volcanoes is kind of the perfect disaster, because a volcano eruption causes earthquakes, tidal waves, avalanches. There's so many disasters under that volcano umbrella, you can say. So it's always it's so fun with volcano disasters in movies, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I know, and as anyone who's listened to your previous appearances will know, you are a huge fan of the disaster movie genre, and we've talked about the appeal of those films before with you, and we're all familiar with like the big titles in these genres. So, I wondered though, as you are a fan, are there any disaster movies that are, say, off the beaten track a little bit that you would recommend?
There is a few, actually. One that comes to mind now, exactly now when we're talking, that people tend to forget, probably because they haven't seen it, is a movie called Epicenter with Tracy Lords and Gary Daniels. It's one of those quickly produced action movies produced by PM Entertainment Group in LA during the 90s. And I don't remember so much from the movie, except it has a lot of disasters in it. Because of course there's an earthquake hitting Los Angeles, and they use stock footage from a lot of different movies, including the Eddie Murphy action vehicle Metro, for some reason. I don't remember totally, every detail, but I guess Gary Daniels is some CIA agent or cop and is going to protect Tracy Lords during an earthquake when there is, bad guys after her, something like that. It's a good disaster movie. It's cheap, but it's kind of it has a good flow and regular disasters. Some good original shots, I guess. I haven't seen them in any other disaster movie, at least. And a colorful cast of ex-porn stars and Gary Daniels. And, have you seen it?
I have indeed, Fred. And
yeah?
I've seen it because it has an exploding helicopter in. So
of course.
I was compelled to see it. But yeah, I mean, I'd agree with you. It's quite a cheap film, but it's quite a lot of fun, and it probably feels a bit bigger than it actually is, largely in part because they're borrowing spectacular set pieces from much more expensive, better funded movies. But you know, those are combined with what they shoot themselves, and you know, I mean, it's not the greatest film in the world, but you know, for a PM Entertainment disaster flick with you know, Gary Daniels and one of the most controversial porn actresses of all time. I mean, what more could you want?
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy it. This reminds me also of another PM Entertainment Group movie called Disaster. It's set in, if I remember it correctly, in Las Vegas. And lo and behold, a group of terrorists will do something in some casino there. And they set off disasters around Las Vegas just to get away easy. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I think there's some earthquake involved also, and some floodings and explosions. It's basically a cut and paste disaster movie from other disaster movies and action movies. It's quite a lot of fun. But these titles are just fleeting moments in time that ends up in my head at the moment. I would like to bring up the fad to make disaster movies in Scandinavia. The last 10 years or so, there's been The Quake. There's been The Quake, but that's a sequel to The Wave. And of course, I guess you've seen them?
I haven't. I have heard of them, but I've not seen them.
They're very well made. I mean, the Wave is directed by Roar Uthaug, who did the Troll movie for Netflix, and it's kind of like it's a mountain that, you know, it's about to fall into the sea and create a giant wave of water flushing away a small idyllic Norwegian town, and of course all the human drama around this. And the poor guy who discovered this, he shows up again in The Quake, the sequel, where he discovers that a earthquake will hit Oslo. And of course, no one believes him, and then it happens. It's both of them are quite good. They're well made. There was also one called The North Sea that came a few years ago about a burning, platform, these oil drilling platforms, which was, I kind of dislike oil drilling platform movies. I find them quite boring if they don't have a monster in them. But this one had it was a quite spectacular movie. There was also a movie released in Sweden, I think it was last year, called The Abyss in English, Avgrunden, which is about a town sinking into the ground. Mm-hmm. Because it's like a Swiss cheese of tunnels underneath it. It's a mining town. But The Abyss it's not as good as the Norwegian movies, but it's not bad. It's good human drama with some okay special effects, at least. Then one I missed is called The Tunnel. It's also a Norwegian one where people are stuck inside a deep tunnel together with a lovely fire. I guess it's some tank or something. Something has exploded down there, and they need to survive. I haven't seen that one though, but I need to get it. But I like that we've had some disaster movies here in Scandinavia. I love seeing familiar environment getting. I'm sorry, I almost used the F word there. I just love to see it go down. That's it.
Okay, I think it's time we got stuck into Dante's Peak. But before we do that, let's listen to an absolutely vintage Trailer Man trailer.
It turns day into night, air into fire. Nothing in the world can compare to its power. The most awesome sight you will ever see may be your last. In the town of Dante's Peak, a volcano is turning nature into a nightmare. Come on! Linda Hamilton.
Oh my God.
Dante's Peak. The pressure is building.
A government volcanologist is sent to investigate seismic activity near the town of Dante's Peak, which is situated next to a long-dormant volcano. After discovering worrying signs that the once sleeping volcano may be waking up, he teams up with the town's mayor, tries to warn residents of impending disaster, only to find himself caught up in lava-spewing chaos when the magma-filled mountain blows its stack. Dante's Peak stars Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton. It was directed by Roger Donaldson, who also made Cocktail, Species, No Way Out, and the very underrated, in my humble opinion, 13 Days. When it came out, the critical reception was pretty negative, with reviews criticising the pacing and the script. In terms of Joe Public, the film has a user rating of exactly 6 on IMDb and a user rating of 2.9 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So, with all of that out of the way, Fred, what did you make of Dante's Peak?
You know, it was a very exciting year, 1997, with 2 volcano movies. I remember, for some reason, I think Volcano came out afterwards, and I have stronger memories of actually liking Volcano when I saw it in the cinema compared to Dante's Peak. So Dante's Peak has kind of been in the background for me over these years. Of course, I've have it on Blu-ray. Of course, I have every disaster movie ever made on Blu-ray, but I haven't really revisited it especially often. Probably because it's not in a city environment, because I prefer my disaster movies when, you know, they're in big cities, when you can see the houses crumble and people screaming and trying to hide. And this one is this small town with a lot of beautiful nature around. So it's kind of hard to get a sense of the largeness of the disaster. But this time, however, I was surprised how much I liked it. I found myself mesmerized by the television screen and the beautiful writing and the original acting. I'm slightly ironic here, but I really felt that this is a damn decent disaster movie. You know, much better than I remember it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I would largely agree with what you said. I mean, this is far from the best disaster movie ever made. It is pretty unoriginal, and in some ways it's a bit flavourless, but it's got lots of things that you can really enjoy from a disaster movie here. And I think one of the biggest things about this film is it's really made with a very high technical quality. I mean, especially once the disaster gets going, the shots within the film, the quality of the special effects are really, really good. And I think it is, it compares very favourably with sort of the other sort of big budget disaster movies that were coming out at the time. Well, that's my take on it anyway.
Well, I was so surprised to realize now during my revisit. I mean, I watched it 2 times here the last couple of days. I mean, of course, there's digital effects in it, but I mean, most of the disaster scenes, most of the action is made with miniatures, models, and real sets crumbling in the background and real explosions and everything. And while I mean the main eruption, which causes of course a major disaster in this small town, might not be the longest in movie history. I would love it to go on for at least 10 minutes more, but it's so effective and it kind of feels realistic just because there is so much physical elements to it. It's not just a green screen, this is it. You kind of feel like you're in there together with Brosnan and Hamilton and their friends, So I dug it. I really dug it.
Yeah, I mean, I really can't sing myself, I can't sing the praises enough of the special effects in this movie. And as you say, yeah, it is very most of those special effects are miniatures, and it's kind of interesting to think about this film in terms of the evolution in special effects, because obviously now this would be largely done by green screen CGI, and obviously that was around at this time, but you still, I guess, sort of fairly early days in sort of how much you were going to do. But it kind of I can't think there'd be sort of after this. I would have thought pretty much the move would be going much more in the direction of CGI, moving away from the practical elements. But and I'm agnostic on. I just think there are good special effects or there are bad special effects. I don't really have a view as to how they are done, but. I had a look at some of the behind the scenes making of this stuff, and the amount of miniatures, their size, scale, and the detail that they did for this is really, really impressive. And I mean, it was admittedly it was a promo for the film that I was watching, so maybe they're exaggerating for their own publicity or something. But they had the special effects guys talking about how they'd built for the dam flooding scene and the river scene, they'd built like the largest tank that had ever been sort of constructed for a film in order to kind of shoot those scenes, create the miniatures and shoot those scenes. So you can't help but watch this film, and it's obviously nearly 30 years old, but still be really impressed by the special effects within this movie.
Yeah, I'm super impressed. One childhood memory I have is reading the comic book version of Meteor, and there's an interview with one of the special effects people in it, and this woman says that the most complex things to do when it comes to miniatures is to involve water, because it always looks fake. But in Dante's Peak, the water scenes, for example, when they're on this bridge going over this river, it looks very, very good. I mean, it's such high level of details on the miniatures, but also a sense of stuff being heavy. That it has, you know what I mean. So it really blew me away. I'm rarely impressed nowadays when I watch an old movie and seeing the special effects. But this movie could have been done today. I mean, the special effects wise, it should be done today actually, because today's effects are of way, they're way crappier than this, I'd say. So, anyway.
Well, when we've talked about disaster movies in the past, there are certain elements that you have identified as being sort of important for your enjoyment of the genre. And one of those elements is some beautiful melodrama. And I wondered what you made of the melodrama in Dante's Peak, because as I was watching this, I was thinking of how you would be enjoying the film, and I was wondering, is there enough melodrama for Fred here?
Well, it could have used a bit more, to be honest. But they kind of, correct me if I'm wrong now, but you have Linda Hamilton, which she's the mayor, if I remember correctly. So they kind of merged the love interest with the mayor drama, which in all of these movies there's always a mayor or someone else, some kind of other local politician who says that no we shouldn't leave the city, we should stay here and have a small town festival or something like that. So they kind of merged that with a love story with Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton instead, and kind of moved the skepticism to Charles Hallahan, the Brosnan's colleague, his boss, I guess, who's more skeptical. It mixes around. It's quite radical for being a disaster melodrama. I would love to have seen more of the townspeople, because at the moment they're just meat in the background. They basically just meat there to be sacrificed to the great volcano god. So. I would like to, in Meteor, you follow this couple in Singapore, I think it's Singapore, who go about their day and suddenly they die. It's those little moments of of human drama I miss.
Yeah, because it feels like they've got sort of a lot of the threads you would expect from a classic disaster movie, but then they don't do anything with them, or they certainly don't do what you would expect. And as you gave a great example of the mayor, you would typically expect them to be, there's no way we're evacuating this town. Equally, they have like a big industrialist who's sort of apparently circling, looking to kind of make a really important investment in the city. So okay, you kind of think, okay, he's going to turn out to play a crucial role, like, because I don't know, maybe he doesn't want we can't cancel this because otherwise my investment hinges in it, or maybe that's what's driving the mayor to resist evacuating the town, blowing this deal or whatever. But those threads don't go anywhere, and as you say, they do shift the skeptic role more onto Charles Hallahan's character, but ultimately you could almost say that his skepticism is reasonable, because he gives a reason for it, because he's been involved in false alarms in the past, and he's happy to, it's not like he's saying, right, we're shutting down, we're not doing any more testing or reading. He's just saying, I want more data. And, obviously that turns out to be the wrong decision, but I don't think it's necessarily the wrong decision, and he's certainly not doing it out of any ill intent. So kind of, these classic sort of plot points where you think, there's this is where the melodrama is going to come out of. They mix it, as you say, they mix it up, do something different, and they don't really exploit the opportunities. And we're left really just with the melodrama of the romance between Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton, and this business with Linda Hamilton's mother-in-law, who's I know you enjoyed her character quite a bit.
The grandma?
The grandma, yes.
I love the grandma. The grandma is one of the... I mean, I watched that scene like 3 times now because it's so funny. I know it's tragic. I know it's really, really tragic. I know. But I just need to bring up, in Volcano you have a scene where a guy is sacrificing himself by walking on lava. So he slowly melts into the lava. His legs get burned off, basically. And Dante's Peak has this fantastic scene where grandma, the whole family and grandma finds themselves on a boat on a lake somewhere. And they discover, because there's dead fish on the surface, that they're actually on an acid lake. A lake of acid, basically, Dante's Inferno, more or less. So of course they need to get to dry land as fast as possible, and they kind of succeed with that, because when it's like 1 meter away from the bridge, the grandma decides to jump into the acid and push the boat like 1 meter, 2 meters maybe. And then she stumbles up on ground and succumbs to her horrifying acid burns. And I remember seeing this scene in cinema, and I was laughing, but I'm not laughing really because it's bad. I'm laughing because it's outrageous. It's like, what the heck, man? I have a lot of feelings when it comes to this.
Because she doesn't really need to, as you're sort of describing there, she doesn't really need to jump out of the boat at the moment. But the only way that scene or that decision makes sense is because they've tried to set up this character arc for her where she's endangered the entire family by refusing to come down off the mountain, putting everyone else in danger because they've gone to then collect her and drag her forcibly down off the mountain. And this is, I guess, it's her diving into the lake in that way. It's her redemption, I guess, for risking the lives of her daughter-in-law and her 2 grandchildren. And that's the only reason that scene makes sense.
You're such a friendly soul. Of course, that's absolutely. But I mean, I would have killed her off in a better way. Because remember, inside the house, I don't remember if this is before or after now, actually, but they're standing in the living room, and Pierce Brosnan is screaming something, and suddenly the wall just burst open with lava. It's like the Blob, basically. Imagine grandma standing in front of that wall, saying something nice and cute, saying, "Forgive me." And just like in Deep Blue Sea, when the shark kills Samuel L. Jackson, the lava like splat takes her. I think that's better writing, to be honest. But
because the other thing that this film, in addition to being a bit light on melodrama, the other thing which this film lacks, and we've already sort of alluded to it, is a good douchebag. Which you love a douchebag in this movie, and I guess the mother-in-law is kind of a douchebag. Charles Hallahan's character Dreyfus, he's kind of a douchebag, but I don't think, as I said, he's not that ill-intentioned. Even if he makes the wrong decision, and this big corporate businessman turns out not to be if he's a complete red herring of a douchebag. And I was left a bit disappointed for the lack of a douchebag in this film.
Maybe the douchebag in the movie is ourselves, the audience.
It's very deep, Fred.
Yeah.
Might be too deep for this podcast.
No, actually, I didn't think about this, that it lacks a classic douchebag. I mean, because all of these movies have a classic douchebag. It could be the ex-husband, or it can be the industrialist or mayor or whatever. The character that everyone wants to die. But Charles Hallahan, I don't want him to die. I know he's dead already, but I don't want him to die because he's a likable character and a likable actor. Just watch The Thing, for example. And the grandma, she's a grandma, and she gets her redemption and everything. Yeah, that's true. It would have been a masterpiece if it had one of these characters, a stronger bad character. Absolutely. Sorry, I needed to get my thoughts out here so I could work on them a little bit. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the star of this film, Pierce Brosnan. And I saw that you'd posted on social media that you'd rewatched this film, and you put a little interesting message in your post about your Dante's Peak rewatch, and you said, "This is prime Pierce Brosnan, the Pierce that we all see within us when we think about him." And we often do. And yes. What was motivating you to write those words, Fred? Who is this Pierce Brosnan that we all see within us?
Well, it's the Pierce Brosnan who's part of our collective conscious, you can say. I'm sorry, I'm going deep here, but I mean, for example, when we all decide, okay, now I'm going to think about a chair, then we have some kind of symbolic chair inside of us, some kind of thought, some kind of visualization. And that chair probably doesn't really look like the chair you have in the kitchen or anything like that. It's just a symbol of a chair. And when we think about Pierce Brosnan, the image that shows up there is not 007, it is Harry Dalton from Dante's Peak. That is just like Sam Neill shows up in our head as this guy from Jurassic Park. It's kind of the essence of Pierce Brosnan. It's the essence of his life's work as an actor. Yeah.
I do think he's very good in this.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a great role by any stretch of the imagination, but he really, I really like what he brings here, because he's got to do the sort of serious scientist bit. He's also then got to play out a romance with Linda Hamilton. He's also then got to be the sort of, he's got his troubled backstory with the death of his fiancée, and by no stretch of the imagination is it an Oscar worthy performance. But he's got to hit various beats here. He's got to do a bit of romance, serious scientists, and also sort of grieving. He wasn't married, so he's not a widow here. But you get the point. And he hits all of those beats in believable ways, and and working with a script that really isn't the best. So I think you can only praise Pierce Brosnan's performance in this film for those reasons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a great example how a distinguished actor from the UK takes a quite mediocre script and enhances it and lifts it up to something more than it is, because Brosnan is great in this part. He's really, really, really good, and he's kind of believable somehow in all its absurdity. You buy him. I mean, you buy the character. And
he's very good with the he's very good with the kids as well. He's got a good. There's a little bit of comedy in couple with the daughter in particular. So I mean,
the chemistry with Linda Hamilton, I think, is fine too. And I mean, he Brosnan had something going there. I love Brosnan. I kind of love his later career, where he often plays these douchebags, elderly, stiff upper lip douchebags and corrupt politicians and things like that. I think that's he's marvelous at it. But the parts he did during and after his 007 movies are often not bad. It's like he's trying to do something else, even if he refuses to let go of his charming macho aura, of course. It might have sounded like I made fun of Pierce Brosnan being the Dante's Peak character being the symbol for him, but I am not. I mean, I really think he's a good actor, and he's great in this movie. I was reading up a little bit, and they wanted Michael Douglas for this part, and who else was it? It was one of those typical guys who starred in movies at the time. But I think they landed so well with Brosnan here. And didn't Donaldson work with Brosnan? Did he do one of the Bond movies? Or
he didn't. He has. Apparently, they were friends prior to, despite not having worked together before this movie. Apparently, they were friends. They have worked together after this in more recent years. Brosnan did a DTV action flick called The November Man, which is Roger Donaldson directed.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't Dante's Peak the end of a very good third movie run for him there? The Getaway, Species, and then Dante's Peak. 3 movies I think all of them are great. Species, of course, is the true masterpiece of this trio of movies. But The Getaway, I would say, is a very, very underrated, sweaty and dirty and kind of sensual action movie in one way or another.
Definitely. As listeners to the Exploding Helicopter podcast will know, we have reviewed volcano-themed movies together before on this podcast. So we've done When Time Ran Out, we've done Skyfire, and we've now done Dante's Peak. So I felt I would have to ask you, how would you rank these movies?
Oh, that's a tricky question. Now you really put me on the spot. Is that what you say?
Yes.
No, I mean, I'm so predictable, but I must set When Time Ran Out first. For partly because of nostalgic reasons, but partly also because the actors they're slumming away much more in that one, and I like that. I like that kind of, hey, let's wait for the paycheck now and go eat lunch, and then we do. It's I might sound unserious, but there is a special. I mean, this is what Stanley Kubrick did with his actors. He was wearing them down, take after take after take. Irving Allen never had to do that, in his production. People were bored already, and it's a nice feeling. It feels comfortable. So it's my number one. But I'd say that Dante's Peak is number 2 for me, definitely. Skyfire, I love Skyfire, but it's basically just the other 2 movies glued together with some kind of cheap Chinese glue, and Jurassic Park, of course. When Time Ran Out, Dante's Peak, and Skyfire. That's that's how I rate them.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think it's time to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about the exploding helicopter action.
Everybody comes to the spring dance at St. Elizabeth's High School. But not everyone leaves.
What's wrong?
A maniac has come back to school. And class attendance is starting to suffer.
Don't you understand? This is nightmare night.
You'll never get away with it, you know, Michelle.
At St. Elizabeth's School for Girls, getting good grades can be murder. Blood Moon.
We're back, and now we're talking about the exploding helicopter action. This occurs after the volcano has exploded, panicking the town's residents. An unscrupulous helicopter pilot, oblivious to the dangers of flying in skies filled with volcanic ash, offers to fly wealthy residents out of danger in exchange for a nice juicy cash sum. The pilot takes off with the town's well-to-do citizens, but quickly falls prey to engine problems just as Brosnan is desperately racing up the mountain in a truck to save the children of the town's mayor. Out of nowhere, the helicopter appears in front of his truck, crashes nose first into the ground before catapulting over the vehicle in a miraculous close shave. The chopper somersaults forward and crashes into a nearby building where it explodes. So, Fred, what did you make of the exploding helicopter action?
Oh yeah, I'm impressed. This was a good one, I think, for two reasons. The first reason is that here we have a trope that all disaster movies should have. That you have a person who offers, he gets people to pay and he will save them and they all die, or just he talks them into joining him and they all die. For example, the elevator scene in Earthquake or the helicopter scene in When Time Ran Out. So I love that they squeezed in one of those classic kind of bad guy qualities here. But the action itself, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous and it involves miniatures, which is, I mean, for me, that saves basically all movies with exploding helicopters when they use physical objects and blow them into tiny pieces with a lot of fire. I kind of like, it's kind of like how I've been studying this scene and I really don't understand how the physics work here with the helicopter. But for me, it kind of just bounces over the car. It's like it's kind of rubbery in that way. And it bounces into the building and explodes. It's like, I don't know what to say, but it's. I think it's one of the good ones. One of the good guys when it comes to helicopter explosions.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed this scene as well, and I agree with you. The physics don't make a lot of sense here. I don't think rubberized helicopters. Not sure that they exist. But I enjoyed the construction of the scene. You know, you get to see Brosnan in peril as this helicopter sort of just has this narrow squeak as it flies over the top of the vehicle. So that adds to the drama here. I would have a little bit of a criticism of the ultimate explosion. I feel it gets a bit sort of taken up, obscured by the building, I guess, really, and it's taking place at night, and I want to see more clearly the helicopter exploding. But overall, I really enjoyed this sequence, and I agree with you. Nice to see miniatures employed here as well, and overall, just a really nicely well done scene.
I hear you. I mean, the best helicopter crashes are, of course, in full daylight and clean from any kind of objects destroying the view. But I'd say that the very fluffy, juicy explosion afterwards with big flames and I kind of think that balances it up, because sometimes I mean, sometimes it's scarier when you don't see the graphic violence, you can say, like in horror movies. That's not, of course, true, because I want to see gore in movies. But yeah, here the helicopter is hidden away by the building and it explodes. But instead it delivers a lot of blood, or at least fire,
Yes.
Yeah, and I like it. It's a beautiful shot. It is, but I understand. I see the problems you see. I do, but I'm a very, very forgiving person.
You are indeed. Now, a couple of other points of interest, though, that I wanted to mention about this. I mean, the helicopter that blows up is a Bell UH-1, if you like to know these things. A couple of other points of notice is Pierce Brosnan, and he's somebody, if you're interested in films with exploding helicopters, he's somebody who has been in quite a lot of them. He's been in 8 films overall so far in his career with an exploding helicopter, and in terms of actors and how he ranks against other people who've been in films with exploding helicopters, he's equal 6th on our list of actors who've been in the most films with an exploding helicopter. And it was only on this watch that I realised something very interesting about Linda Hamilton, is that actually she's been in more films than I realised with an exploding helicopter. She's actually been in 6 films with a chopper fireball, which puts her equal 8th on our list. But more significantly is that for whatever reason, being in films with exploding helicopters seems to be largely a male preserve. But Linda Hamilton is just one of 2 women who have been able to get into our top 10 list of actors who've been in the most films with exploding helicopters, and she's just 1 film behind Michelle Rodriguez, who's been in 7 films with an exploding helicopter. So as I say, hadn't realised. It was only when I had a quick look at Linda Hamilton's CV I started realising, hang on, she's actually been in more films with an exploding helicopter than I've appreciated.
I'm very happy for her because I suppose she's listening to the podcast, and I'm sure she will dance of joy. Basically,
yeah, she'll probably reappraise her career. In light of what I've just said, and maybe she'll sort of look to, I could edge ahead of Michelle Rodriguez here if I make a couple of wise choices in my future film projects.
Yes. I really think we should. I mean, Linda Hamilton's part in Dante's Peak kind of reflects our discussion here today, because she's kind of forgotten. She doesn't have a lot of things to do in Dante's Peak, which is kind of. I remember that surprised me after watching, the Terminator movies and those kind of stuff. And here she's kind of just. I'm not saying she is, but she's close to the passive female character who just gets saved and letting Harry Dalton do the work. Kinda. I'm a bit unfair here. I know I am, but it feels like her character would have been so much better with another rewrite or 2. Made her a little bit more than this nice mom.
Yeah.
Kinda, because I like Linda Hamilton a lot, and I always felt that outside the Terminator movies, she's kind of underrated.
Yeah, she definitely brings something different that we don't often get to see from her. But she's been in some great films with exploding helicopters, and I would, if you like trashy 90s thrillers, she's in Shadow Conspiracy, which features has a great cast in that film, very entertaining, with a fabulous exploding helicopter.
Shadow Conspiracy, is that is not the one with Charlie Sheen?
Yes, it is with Charlie Sheen.
I've never seen it. Recently I really want to see it, because for some reason I haven't seen it, and it sounds like a conspiracy thriller, and it has a great cast, but I haven't been able to find it in a fast way, because I don't want to wait. I just want to watch it right now. So it's worth watching, I guess.
I think, Fred, you would really, really enjoy it. I mean, it's very silly, but it's incredibly slick. You've got a really good cast. There are some good set pieces within the film. I think you would find it. I think you would find it very, very entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, Okay, well, I think that just about wraps things up for this show. Fred, thank you for joining me once again. As ever, it was an absolute pleasure. But before you go, would you like to take a moment to tell people where they can find you online?
First of all, thank you. It's like I said in the beginning, it's always great to be here on this podcast. It's everything a man like me could dream for, actually. It's the easiest way to find me. It's on Twitter as Homo Satanis, and on Instagram as Schmollywood Babylon, where it's mostly on Instagram actually. I post movies on Twitter. It's a lot of other things going on, obviously. So the Instagram Schmollywood Babylon, Twitter Homo Satanis. There you will find me, and I'm one of the good guys, so if you're a good guy, I will follow back.
As always, don't forget to check out the Exploding Helicopter website at explodinghelicopter.com for more reviews and information about films where helicopters explode. If you could rate, review, or retweet what we do, I'd be very grateful. We rely on word of mouth, and that kind of stuff really helps us out. We'll be back soon, but until then, what should people do, Fred?
Keep watching the skies for those exploding helicopters.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream.